I got married recently. There were 30 people from my family. Thought they had a good time. I did not get to spend time with all of them. Made sure my parents were good and spoke to a couple of my aunts and uncles to make sure they had eaten and had some cake. Only hiccup I knew was that one uncle had trouble finding a seat. When he asked me, I pointed towards his table, told him there was a seating chart and my brother could be helped as well. My family has not gone to American-style weddings with assigned seating before, usually more of a free-for-all for traditional weddings from my home country. Knowing this, I asked my brother beforehand to help them out when everyone was getting seated. Recently saw my mother. She mentioned that apparently some relatives were angry at my wife and I for not spending more time with them. Thought it was strange that there was not much from my cousins who were active on social media. Figured it was because it was a new experience for them going to this type of wedding. Maybe weren't comfortable taking too many pictures. One cousin posts FB stories about basically everything. His one post and now profile picture is of him standing in front of someone else's very nice car. Same cousin also complained to my mom that there was not enough food during cocktail hour. We had a charcuterie station along with 5 past appetizers, sliders, mini chicken and waffle, mini samosa, lobster bisque, veggie option, enough to keep people from going hungry during cocktail hour. My mom joked he should have asked the venue staff to come out to the parking lot with the apps. Another cousin was annoyed that she and her siblings didn't get one-on-one pictures with us and that they didn't get enough pictures in general. We have not gotten the pictures from our photographer yet, so maybe they did. We tried to get some, but whenever I went to my mom or one of my aunts to see how they were doing, my cousins were not nearby. Was not going to run around looking for people. Most people would grab my wife and I when we passed to get a picture. We had our photographer take pictures with family before the ceremony because we knew it would be harder once things got going. Of course, the cousin and her family showed up late, so missed that part. There were also 2 mobile photo booths with an attendant making sure people get some pictures through that. All they had to do was go near one. My parents brushed it off because they understood we had a lot of things happening and a lot of people to talk to that night. We tried our best to get FaceTime with as many people as we could. I did feel slightly bad not spending more time talking with my relatives, but their complaining just reinforces why the main reason I invited them was so my parents would be more comfortable and have people to spend time with. It's my strongly considered opinion that weddings are the best opportunity that we'll have to offend a large crowd of family and friends. It's a given that someone will take offense at something. Some will think it's too little food, others will gripe about the variety, too many options, not enough. The bride didn't wear white, should have worn white, etc. You can count on it. They'll get over it, it sounds like you already have. Congrats on your wedding, by the way. I would never expect to socialize with the bride and groom at the reception other than congratulations and good luck. At most of the large weddings I've attended, the bride and groom stop at each table to acknowledge and thank people for coming. Happy platitudes are exchanged and the couple moves on, leaving the guests to socialize amongst themselves. Reminds me years ago, my ex-wife comes from overseas and arrived a few days prior to our wedding. I introduced her to some of my friends prior to the wedding. There wasn't the time to visit everyone anyway. One friend got angry that I never introduced to my wife to him, so he rang me on my wedding day to tell me he won't come to my wedding, even though I had invited him with at least a few weeks' notice. I am F25, my siblings M31 and M36 have been taking care of our parents, father 73 and mom 62 together for years. Side note, we live in California. For as long as I can remember, my father has never had a steady form of income and has always worked as a handyman. When I was 6 years old, he had one steady employed job for 8 months and then he quit/got fired because he didn't like the way he was being talked to. My mom has always worked at least 2 minimum wage jobs at the exact same time. Dishwasher/housekeeper/cleaning lady. I started preparing my mom's taxes when I was 16 and I finally learned the entire household income my mom made was $16,000 a year. She was gone from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. my entire life growing up, and all she made was $16,000 a year. So I picked up a job to help. My father never allowed government assistance even though we far needed it, but he said it was embarrassing and we should be able to make do without. When I was 18, I applied for colleges and got numerous scholarships and a good amount of financial aid if I went to a school 4 hours away. My father said it was a selfish decision for me to leave them with all that money and leave them in ruins when I see how much my mom struggles, and I should be using that money for them because I don't need it at all if I go to a school locally. I talked to my two brothers and they told me they've been pitching in where they can send our parents a collective $600 a month to help with living expensive and to leave and to go to college as far as possible. I'm in my first semester of college and my father calls to tell me the DRs have found a mass in my mom's reproductive system. She's going to have surgery and get treatment. She won't be able to work for an undefined time, so I need to help. I got a part-time job on campus and I just started sending them 70% of the money I made. Mom has surgery, my father tries to get me to move back home because she's not doing great and it would be cheaper for me if I did. I got a full-time job instead while going to school full-time because I refused to move back home. Fast forward years later, I'm 25. I've done everything possible to get myself in the best financial position and my brothers are doing well too. I work in the finance sector and I make a little over 100k and live in LA, so COL is a bit high, but I'm pretty comfortable. My parents say their car broke down. I gave them my 2017 Civic and tell them not to worry about maintenance or insurance or anything, I'll take care of it. I pay for the utility bills in their home, my brothers pay for their cell phones, and we still send them $800 a month. A cheap mortgage payment for a 3-bedroom house that we pay $600 per month, and we collectively pay for their property taxes. We do all of this, and yet we go on a vacation or do something nice for ourselves, and we immediately get a phone call saying, if you have all this money to throw around, the least you could do is see if your parents have anything to eat today. My mom does, I don't know what to her phone immediately. I get a phone call from my father. If you guys aren't going to pay for the phone bill, don't offer to pay because your mom's phone is disconnected. I have had family members call my brothers and I say they're worried about our parents' livelihood because our parents have told them that they're worried the house is going to foreclose or that the car is going to be repoed and if we do anything to help them out. The latest one I've gotten is my parents asking for hundreds to $1,000 in money just because you make so much money, how do you not have the money to spare? And of course comes the greatest of all, after all we've done for you. It's infuriating that at the end of the day I still don't do enough for them. All of their living expenses are paid for. No one I know has to take care of their parents like this. I have friends who make just as much as I do, or if not more, whose parents help them pay their rent for an apartment, buy a car or house, or even pay for their wedding. I never got that. None of my siblings ever got that. End rant. This is easier said than done, but if this continues, you pull the plug. I know they're your parents, but if they only see you and your brothers as money pots, then you need to get out and go away as far as you can. You worked hard for the things you have, you can do whatever you want with your money. But if you're going to continue to help support your parents financially, there needs to either be a clear barrier or you stop paying altogether. Do not give them any access to your money. Whatever they get should be decided by you and only you. You are a fully grown, self-sufficient adult. You have the power in the situation, your parents do not. Do not let them bleed you dry. You don't need to suffer for their shortcomings. Tell your dad to apply for food stamps and support because your money is going to disappear very soon. Also, how is he telling people that the car could be repossessed when you gave them your own car, so that cannot happen, and you guys are paying the mortgage? Give your mom the option to leave him for good and you and your brothers will help her or cut your parents off completely. You all work hard and you should not be guilt-tripped or spending that money on yourselves. Think it's time they stop being so entitled. This is probably not as flashy as other stories I've seen from here, but maybe it is of a different theme as it is art. English is not my first language, bear that in mind. So I live in Spain and work as an artist. Every year, me and a friend get a booth at a big geek convention and do quick and cheap portrait drawings of attendance. It gives us a lot of money and we have barely ever had anyone complaining, as we have a lot of examples of what the drawing will look like and explanations of the costs. Basically, we do black and white ink portraits on paper for $5 per each character you want. We are also the cheapest booth in the entire convention, as other artists tend to work by charging about $15 to $25, then dedicating 1 to 2 hours to doing a detailed drawing. Meanwhile, we do simpler ones in about 10 to 15 minutes. Simply speaking, we are the fast food of the convention, for those who don't want to wait nor pay so much, and we make it clear to the clients. Also, I'm particularly trained at drawing fast because I have been doing comics for about 15 years, so there's no problem of the drawings looking bad because they're fast. They simply aren't gonna look as good as a 2-hour drawing. As I said, we never had any problems till a convention a few years ago. Enter a couple of Karens, let's say Karen 1 and 2. They come together and ask for a portrait of them in the same page, and they also want to include a child from a photo they had. One of them, Karen 1, had the most stereotypical Karen look ever, so I smelled trouble and explained to them that the price is not for the paper, but per character to draw, so 3 persons would be $15. Some people make that mistake sometimes despite multiple warnings through the booth. I also showed them what the result would look like. They said it was okay. I made the drawing and Karen 1 complains she looks a little ugly. Now, thing to point out here, I drew manga style, which is already stylized, and I make people prettier than they are on purpose because they feel better that way, and then come back for more drawings. But some people are so ugly that if you want the drawing to resemble them, it's gonna look somehow ugly anyways. This was the case as Karen 1 was very ugly, but somehow she seemed to have an image of herself so high that even a stylized, embellished manga version of her looked uglier in her eyes. I didn't respond to anything because I don't know what I could have possibly responded there that wasn't either false or offensive, but fortunately they just left. Now fast forward to the event closing and the Karens come back. They claim I've scammed them because they went to another booth and the artist there made them a better drawing for the same price. So obviously my drawing isn't worth $15. I asked to see the drawing and they show me a paper with a single character, some kind of nymph I think. That was indeed more detailed than the one I did, but it was one character and it was done by one of the artists I mentioned before who spent several hours doing it, so obviously a $15 drawing of a single character done in 2 hours is gonna look better than 3 $5 portraits done in 15 minutes. And that's not even counting that the other artists can simply draw better than me. I tried to explain this to them, but they didn't budge an inch and started shouting. The place was mostly silent while everyone was packing their things, and these 2 Karens shouted, refusing to leave until I paid them back fully. I can't remember the specific quote since this was years ago, but I do remember at one point Karen 1 said something like, "I've come here with my wife to get a drawing and you do this to us just because we are lesbians." To which I responded, "Lady, I didn't even know you were lesbians or married until literally this instant." But at that point, it was clear to me they were just trying to get a free drawing by hurling any accusation they could make up, as they threw several other accusations of things that never happened and made each less sense than the last. They also repeated again how Karen 1 looked ugly, and oh, how much effort it took me to not respond that she was ugly, and of course tried to claim that because the drawing was in the same page, it should be $5, despite me explaining this to them, and they agreeing with it when I made this drawing, and then came the line I will remember all my life. As I was thinking all of this, how entitled these Karens were, and how vile their actions were trying to accuse people of homophobia. My country is very progressive, and being accused of homophobia is like a reputation death sentence. And all kinds of stuff just to get a free drawing. I was trying to maintain a straight face. And then Karen 1 says, "I can see in your face that you know we are right." At that point, I couldn't contain the biggest face of disbelief I've ever made, which made the Karens go crazy and claim they were gonna find me on social media and take me down somehow. In the end, I absolutely refused to concede to their demands and they ended up leaving when the security guards told them the place was closing up. Afterwards, other artists came to me from their booths to tell me I was on the right, as this must have happened to all of them at some point. Spain is a country with very, very little appreciation for drawings. People here think drawing is just a hobby and you can't charge money for it. 99% of my clients come from outside because people here can't even contemplate that they should pay an artist. I only make money in my own country when I go to a convention, and even so, you often hear people comment how super expensive your prices are because you charge $5 for a poster or a portrait, when online a poster would probably not get below $15. Well, that's how it is. As I said, not as flashy, no police or amazing revenges involved, but I'll probably always remember that incident when doing portraits. I imagine a scenario where you asked to see the drawing, ripped it up, and gave them back their money. After all, they thought it was ugly and they shouldn't keep it. Ha! Well handled by not backing down. That is ultimately the best solution. Entitled people are more emboldened by people catering to them. I understand these kinds of people use those tactics because they work. When accused of something serious, people tend to believe the crocodile tears accuser, and you can get in serious trouble. So I'm guessing most victims will just cater to avoid the problem. But for me, it has the opposite effect. The more you do something like that, the less I'm gonna listen. So, I'm a 16F and I have a brother who is also 16. Most of my memories of my stepdad just consist of him arguing with my older sister. I don't remember a lot of the arguments, but I did notice how strained their relationship was. My stepdad would constantly favor me and my brother, and he didn't try and hide it. And my mom just did everything she could to be positive and I guess fix my stepdad's relationship with my sister. Shocker, it didn't work. So fast forward to now, me and my brother are still trying to cope with the fact that our sister passed away. My stepdad keeps telling us that it happened a year ago and that we should get over it and that we shouldn't use our sister as an excuse to ignore life problems. So now that you know the type of person my stepdad is, onto the entitlement. My sister left us a lot after her passing, and every single thing in her room means a lot to us. And my stepdad knows it, and yet that didn't stop him from thinking he could go into our rooms and take all that and try to sell it because we are running low on money. We weren't. We got into a huge argument and my brother even had to step in to make sure things didn't escalate. When my mom came home because my stepdad lied about everything right in front of our faces, he started to do that BS crocodile tears saying how sorry he was and that he couldn't handle having my sister's stuff all over the house because it made him depressed, and my mom bought it and said that I shouldn't cuss my dad out like that and that he was grieving a loss of a child. Thankfully, I caught him before he sold anything. But this isn't even the first time he's pulled those fake tears. He's constantly posting on Facebook saying how much he misses his daughter, and I'm surprised none of my relatives have caught on. He made a happy birthday post for my sister, even though her birthday was still a week away, and would constantly do everything to get other people to sympathize with him, like putting up pictures of my sister everywhere when guests come over, but immediately throw them into my room when they leave. Always trying to create a pity story and trying to scam some of my aunts and uncles into giving him money so he could afford therapy. But luckily, my aunts and uncles know that go on expensive golf trips and buying way to Muni watches, and clothes isn't therapy, for him at least. I have more stories about him, but I would need a chapter book to explain it.